Hello and welcome to another episode of the Maverick Mystic Arts podcast. We'll be continuing today with our exploration of Franz Bardon's Initiation into Hermetics, this book here, and we'll be completing stage 10 and the book today. So this video will be, in this audio if you're listening on the podcast platforms, will be sort of an overview and review of the entire process. So, up to this point, if you have engaged in the training in a meaningful way, there will be a number of skill sets that will have developed, and ideally, we will have become a different quality of human being. This is the goal behind most spiritual trainings, is to evolve this thing that is us, to become as fully and completely human as possible, to let go of all the fabricated aspects of mind, of emotion, of body, and to become as clear and light as possible. And so the initiation system, this one and most others, the goal is to enlighten, to clear, to become empty, right? Now, then we have to start looking at some of the words here. Beyond becoming is to realize, right? To realize the emptiness that's underneath all of this, right? To realize essence and nature and cosmic union and connection. So in the beginning of any path, we have the cultivation or the becoming aspect, where we are building energy, building the body, building relationships between energy and the body, discovering mind, discovering emotion, taming emotion, all of these doing things, because once you discover the rampant nature of the mind, there's a whole cascade of processes that we go through that are to understand it more and more deeply. And through realization and understanding, through changing the evolving view that we have, our agency grows. So in the beginning, we have the lower octave of control. You observe all of this stuff, and we want to develop control. So these are the first steps of any initiation system, really, is to cultivate the body, to build the body, build the strength of the body, build the health of the body, build the pliability of the body, build the strength, the balance and harmony of the emotional systems, build the sacred nature into what it is that we're exploring. This Bardon would call the ennobling of the character. And then to do the same thing with the mind. Now, when we are working through this process, typically there are precepts that are involved, or precepts that are given by the system, predetermined precepts, right? Precepts of mind, precepts of emotion, precepts of action, right? So speech, body, mind, precepts of energy. And these are wonderful things to have, because when you're at your lowest, you have a scaffolding that you're kind of stuck in, right? Because we're not all always at our best all the time. Now, as you keep evolving through this, the precepts don't really exist anymore, in the sense that we don't need a scaffolding. The resonance of this thing that we are building is no longer in resonance with those qualities or habits, those activities of mind, speech, of body that would have required precepts to give compartments so that we don't act those things out or speak those things out or think those things out. So it's very important that we acknowledge the developmental process and the evolving process of the spiritual path, right? So again, in the beginning, we are building, right? Then as we evolve, there is this becoming phase that we go through where we become that which we built. And at this point, the discipline, the hard nature of that hard practice, all that stuff starts to dissolve because we are becoming the thing. We have grown into a body that is of these qualities, grown into an astral body and emotional and energetic framework that is of these qualities and of this path, and a mental framework as well. We have grown into a mind and a view that is more in resonance with this path. So things keep evolving and growing. Now, as we start to find this harmony, we discover this relationship to emptiness that starts to arise. That underneath this spiritual thing that we built, there is something that we've non-built that starts to arise. And that recognition of the Akasha, that becomes quite paramount. Okay, so this emptiness becomes the jumping point, we could say, or falling point for the rest of the path. And on the other side of that bridge, we cross that bridge of emptiness. And through that, we find all of the, we could say, like higher spiritual type of evolutions. Because over time, we reach a point where the part of us that did do all of the cultivation training has to die, right? The part of us that has come into integration with all of that training has to die. And we have to fall away from habit, from preconception, from absolutely everything. And through the process of development, through the process of exploring the aspects of mind, these attributes, all of the initiatory processes, through exploring the fundamental makeup of the forces that are present, we are able to continue with this growth and to recognize these principles, these energies that be, for what they are, and recognize ourselves as an accumulation of these principles, these energies at play. So towards the end of this book, there's all of these expressions of, we could say, like magical skill or energetic skill, these siddhi that we can develop. And if we've gone through the process in as organic a way as possible and really connected to all of this energetic stuff and really given ourselves up more and more and more, it becomes very apparent that we don't really need to any longer engage in all of this hard-nosed styled training and practice. There is still an incredible amount of training and practice. The attitude shifts. It's not that the activity disappears, but the thing that is engaging in the work has evolved so much that the idea of practice kind of is weird. When you sit down to practice, it's not necessarily to practice as we previously understood it. So we have to be capable of allowing our old views to fall away of what it is that we're engaged in doing. So instead of going through these processes to build specific siddhi and power, you are at one with those energies. You understand through incredible direct experience, countless thousands of hours that you've put into residing in stillness, in equanimity, in akasha, in light, and permeating these qualities through the bodies. You understand the makeup of the mental plane. You understand the makeup of the astral plane, the astral body, the mental body, the physical body, the vital energies that move in and through. You really, really connect with this stuff. So just like when you reach out to pick up a book or whatever, turn a light switch or whatever, you don't necessarily go through a whole series of very specific rituals and processes to remind yourself how to move your arm and to reach out and flick the switch that turns the light on and off. But what we do is we just do it, right? It's not something we have to consider all the mechanics of or anything else. So as you relate to this energy more and more, it becomes less about trying to do a thing with the energy, and it more so becomes an expression of your relationship with energy. It happens all the time, right? You are connected to and as one with this energy because you recognize you are this energy. There is a very real one for one, right? Kind of like the that last scene in the first Matrix where everything's code, and then the shapes, these hologram type shapes of the people are brighter code, where there's more concentrated energy. There's kind of brighter code in these forms, and where things coalesce. It's pretty spot on, right? So we start to develop this connection and this relationship, right? Now, because it's the same, in a sense, as when we move the physical body, it's the same when we move the physical mind and make form and shape and action with the mind, with the mental energy itself, with the astral energy itself, that feeling space, and through the vital expressions as well. And because of this, we start to recognize that just like we take care with our physical action, with our physical speech, we start to take care of and be cognizant of our mental habits and patterns, right? What actions, what do we act out in the mind? What do we act out emotionally, right? What do we act out from an energetic standpoint? And just like you don't walk up to somebody, let's say you're training boxing, right? You're learning how to box. Just like you might not walk up to somebody on the street and just, uppercut them into oblivion out of nowhere, right? You take care of how your mind is affecting through that mental plane. You, as a byproduct of the development, no longer think ill towards people because you recognize, and towards yourself, very important too, because you recognize the very tangible nature of expression in the mental plane. So you don't, from the energetic standpoint, go up to somebody randomly and knock them out with your mental expressions, with your mind and your view. The same astrally, right? You don't go up to a random person, again, just walking down the street, and punch them in the face. So the same applies from an astral standpoint. You stop feeling ill towards the environment. This is a byproduct of development because you recognize the connection, right? And as you become one with these, with the environment, with the energy, you see the energy that is across from you is you. And this is not a poetic statement. This is very tangible, very real. Once again, a realization that you come to through thousands and thousands of hours of deep dissolution, practice, meditation, and of course, beginning with cultivation. So we want to be wary of the easy transgressions when you start working subtly, right? When we start working with energy and we are able to understand its real tangible results, we can kind of work with it. There is a really easy habit to fall into, right? Of essentially like working with the lowest aspect of ourselves, being, we could say, directed by our lowest to play with this energy. And just because somebody is not aware of what it is that you're doing, there's stuff happening, right? So, unless you're an enlightened being and you're not working from any place of you whatsoever, then, it's good to keep your mind to yourself, to your own field. Transform yourself, right? Bring the quality of your practice, of your development, of your goodwill and cosmic connection and relationship into whatever situation you might be going into, whatever environment you might be in. But to start working the space around you as if it is separate from yourself, this gets into some very weird territory. So we want to be very cognizant of this, because you can think you're doing good and be doing more harm than good, based off the quality of the thing that is engaging in the work, right? This is prevalent in most teachers until there's a certain degree of development reached, most healers until there's a certain degree of development reached. You see this all the time with healers of many kinds. It's so prevalent. It's always there till it's not. So we cannot neglect the actual transformation of this thing, the dissolution of this thing. If we try to, we could say, pretend our understanding of connection, maybe you do recognize in a tangible way that that energy is this energy and this is all permeable. Maybe there is a recognition there, but maybe the evolution of the being itself hasn't caught up. Maybe you are innately tapped to that energy. Maybe you've trained it, right? At whatever layer you might be working with. Right? Let's say that's there. Once again, when you act through that from a lower space, there is harm that's being done. The substance and refinement of that substance that you might be working with, right? Just because it is a refined substance, if it is being directed through and by something that is not of that substance, or something that is far more coarse, like our three-dimensional identity that we typically engage with, it's not a one-for-one that just because the substance we're being worked with is more refined, that the, how could we say it, that the manifestation of that work is good, right? So really, we want to take heed of the instruction that Bardon gives here to ennoble the character. Now, the ennobling of the character, like we said in the beginning, can be done through precepts. What we find often in spiritual circles is that these words like compassion and love and all of this stuff is thrown around. And there's a lot of, the same egoistic attachment to that stuff as there would be to building power or anything else. Now, at least in that sense, the attachment is to something that's on the surface for somebody else, right? For, beyond self, for the, general goodness that you might be emanating. At least the idea towards it that you might be moving is good. But as time goes on, we have to recognize that our relationship with those words and the meanings that we think they have aren't what they are. And the ennobling of the character becomes a byproduct of your evolution, right? As you practice, as you engage with this training, and as the realization of reality continues to evolve and grow, what happens is the ennobling of the character takes place. It can't not. These words that are bandied about, like compassion, it changes meaning. The meaning changes, right? In the beginning, it is fraught with our own self-importance of what those things mean. We are involved in it because we have to be, because that is the layer of development that we're at. And then as that keeps changing and falls away, the meaning of these concepts changes entirely, and there becomes no meaning imposed on a concept. And we start to realize that these words and these concepts are, they're our best. They're the finger pointing at the moon. It's an approximation of a very real expression of connection. Okay? So that is at the crux of all this work, is our evolution. And where we fall short is when we start to attach to the fingers instead of being open to the moon and realizing our oneness and union with that, if we're continuing with that metaphor there. Okay? So all of the work is for this evolution. And initiating systems, ideally, have a means of cultivating the body, cultivating the ethical standpoints, right? Cultivating the energy, cultivating the mind, right? Cultivating, how can we put it, how we act in life, our expression, right? There's a better word for that. Anyway, cultivating all these different standpoints, and then through initiation, connecting us to and through emptiness, equanimity, connecting us to the falling away of self, and walking us through all of these steps of this process. Eventually getting you to a point where you are so free from this thing, and so unencumbered and we could say like liberated, that the actions we engage with of the mind, of the astral, through the energy, the physical, becomes a expression of spontaneous falling away, we could say. And it's very difficult to pinpoint what that is, and everything shifts. And from there, the types of connection and meditation you get into are much, much different. The doingness is an expression of the non-doingness. This is where you get into all the weird stuff of the higher levels of meditation, where you try to express it in formful words, and you end up having to express it in its negatives, as in the non of a thing, because to say it is the thing is to impose form to it. But to kind of suggest that it might not be another thing sort of gives direction, but less imposition. So that's sort of why a lot of the instructions can become or be confusing, in the sense of the non-thing. And, we don't like it too much from a certain standpoint. but it can be the best approximation of direction. Okay, so I think that's it. Just want to illuminate on the cover the Aum, the AUM. Worth exploring that in all of the detail that you can. Thank you for watching the series. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be continuing on with podcasts of other topics. Maybe we'll go through some of Bardon's other books. There's other systems and other training and stuff that I want to discuss, and topics that are not necessarily specifically of Bardon's work. So we'll continue on with the podcast, maybe get some more interviews out here and there, and, maybe open up some Q&A as well. If there's topics you'd like me to look at, you can shoot an email in to the school through the website. And yes, thank you for your time. I hope you found this whole series helpful. And what else can I say? If you're interested in training, check out the website. And that's it. All right. Bye.